Would the world be a better place if people read more fiction books? It's a question I ask myself every day. Would the world be a better place if people read more fiction books? So of course, saying the world's problems can all be fixed if people read more fiction books is a completely ridiculous thing to say. But there is a growing body of research that says that reading more fiction can actually make us better people. Let me clarify. According to research, people who read fiction books have greater empathy. In fact, fiction readers are able to understand people better, see different perspectives, and be more in tune with the feelings of others and themselves. But why does this make us better people? Well, on its own, empathy helps us build stronger social connections with others. It helps leaders make compassionate decisions. It allows us to see the world as others see it, helps us to remove judgment, prejudice, and so much more. So empathy seems like a pretty useful skill to have, and just by reading fiction, you can grow this skill. Sounds pretty good to me. Oh, I suppose you want proof. Okay, fine. When reading fiction books, we're quite literally transported into another world. In fact, a study from 2014 showed that students had more empathy towards immigrants, refugees, and LGBTQIA+ people after reading Harry Potter. This is because the social makeup of the Harry Potter world is made up of prejudices that mimic our own. In a similar study in the same year, researchers found that people who read Saffron Dreams, a book about a Muslim woman who lost her husband in the 9/11 attacks and was then subject to racist attacks, showed less negative bias towards people of different races and ethnicities after reading. In comparison, people who read a non-fiction version of events or a summary of the book didn't have the same shift in perspective. But why does this happen? Well, when we read fiction, our perspective shifts to that of the main character. This allows you to see and feel what they do. You're able to experience events and situations that you may never experience in real life. These experiences come in the perspective of the main character. If they feel fear, you know it. If they feel joy, you know it too. You're exposed to all of this, even if their character and their story is completely different from your own. We're able to experience the world through another's eyes. Everything from gender to age to profession and more. We can experience what it's like to be at war, to feel tragic loss, experience hardship, pain, and the opposite of all of this. With all this fictional empathic experience tucked under our belt, we can use it to experience the real world too. Plus, something really interesting happens to our brains when we're enveloped in these stories. If we read the word run, for example, the area of the brain related to physically running is activated. It's the same for any movement or gesture we make, which makes empathy easy because we're quite literally linked to the main character through their perspective. Pretty cool, right? When we're reading fiction, we're able to experience empathy in a much more effective way, especially when you compare it to something like journalism or non-fiction work. This is because we get to see someone's interior perspective that we wouldn't have gained otherwise. We're more likely to avoid critical thinking and allow ourselves to be swept up in the story instead. And we're able to see the character's life over many years, seeing transformation and change. But you might be thinking, okay, well, many of the people who experience empathy when reading fiction books may just be empathic in the first place. Maybe it wasn't the books that did it. You'd probably be right in thinking that if somebody was more empathic in the first place, then they'd be interested in the interior life of others, and then this would lead them to reading more fiction books. But that's not to say that if people read fiction books, even if they don't display a lot of empathy in the first place, that they don't develop empathy, because empathy can be taught and learned. In fact, a study from 2012 asked participants to do a mood questionnaire, which contained questions measuring empathy. They were then given a short story to read and a set of questions that asked them how transported they felt when they read the story. The experimenters then staged a test on participants and dropped a pack of pens on the floor. The participants that felt the most transported by the story were more likely to retrieve the pens from the floor, therefore displaying more empathy. Of course, experiments are one thing, and as small as they are, can't really be applied to wider society. Maybe. There's still some more work to do on that one. But we've all likely experienced a change in perspective after having made friends with somebody who isn't like us at all. Either that or after reading a particularly emotional or engaging story. So if fiction reading makes us better people, then I'm all for it. But I want to know from you, do you think reading fiction makes us better people? Do you have any book recommendations that have helped you build empathy? I would love to know, so leave me a comment. And I will see you next Thursday for another video.